Hello everybody and welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to show you how I did in a tournament that I played today. It is the under 1500 Rapid Arena, and you can already probably tell by the title how I did. I did pretty well, and let's just get right into the video. All the questions will be solved later. So my first opponent was against Iron Tiger Grasser, who's a 1300. And so I begin by d4, d5, knight f3. What I did in the past was this bishop f4, advanced London system. I just feel like that's too quick, and it kind of just gives away what I'm gonna do very quickly. And so what I've gone for nowadays is knight f3, which gives me more options of what to do. Like, I can play a Queen's Gambit, I can play a Collie system, I can still play the London system if I want. I normally still play the London system. I can play a Catalan, I can play whatever I want. Just that knight f3 gives me some more, like, initiatives of what to do. And so knight c6, bishop f4, which is the London system. Bishop f5, e3, and he goes fat, kind of for this, like, fried liver attack. Yeah, it's just not very good against the London system because after bishop d3, there's a number of things. Knight takes is normally the thing to do because then you can you can keep this bishop on this good diagonal right here, which kind of just chops the board in half. And then if you take with the bishop, then this knight just gets kind of stranded right there. And so bishop takes, pawn takes d3, and then the whole point of the pawn on d5 is just gone. And so e6, I kick the knight out. I develop the knight to the center, and then he plays bishop e7, which I don't really understand. Bishop d, usually in the London system, bishop d6 is the point, because you kind of just want to get rid of this dark squared bishop, and after trading it off, this knight maneuver to e4 is kind of just like dead. And so after castles, knight f6, and now I hop my knight into e5, and you can see the whole point of the London system. It's just to put that knight right there and just target literally everything on the black side. It kind of makes black very cramped. And then he plays bishop d6, which kind of just makes no sense because first he developed at the e7, then he developed at the c6, the d6. So yeah. Now I play rook c1, and it kind of gives me this semi-open file on the c file. And then after knight takes, it's just losing already because after pawn takes, it's just the fork. It's just a fork of the bishop and the knight. So after bishop takes, we have knight back. Now you can play d6. However, it's not very active. There's a lot more that you can do. There's a lot more what you can do with what I played, f4, which kind of gives me multiple ideas. I can do a rook lift. I can get this queen out to the king's side. I can get this knight over here on d4. I can do multiple things with this f4 idea rather than d4. And plus, it gives me this escape route to the queen side for the queen. And so, after castles, and I tried this queen b3 line, which is kind of like a Queen's Gambit style game. Normally in the Queen's Gambit accepted, the queen comes to b3 and targets this b7 pawn. But after e5, it just blunders a pawn. And by the way, the b7 pawn is still very well hanging, but it goes with check, and here my opponent left the game. Which is good news, because it just means I get a quicker game, I get on top quicker, I get my win quicker, and I can move on quicker. So at this point in time, I'm in fourth. Yeah. So I'm in fourth place after one game because I completed my game very, 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 very quickly. And I get into my next game. And it's against a 1400. Yeah. So it's kind of scary. I did win this game, actually, and got to 4 points, which is really good for me. And so let me just walk you through this. We go e4, d5, which is my Scandinavian defense, which I've become really familiar with in the past few months. I've been working on this a lot because it's just very simple. He takes c5, queen takes c5, knight c3, knight to the queen to the side. Normally in like professional games, they normally put the queen on d7 or d8. I like putting the queen on a5. Just it's my personal favorite because then after I have this like c6 and then queen c7 idea, and normally when people castle short, this queen eyeing up this h2 pawn is very scary. And so queen f3, which just forgets everything about the basics of chess in developing queen first. So after knight f6, bishop c4, bishop f5, he hangs his queen. Just completely forgets that it is guarded. So after 6 moves, my opponent manages to hang his queen. And the game's lost. It's just over. So bishop d3, queen d7 kind of just keeps this pressure on this d file because normally in the Scandinavian defense, you're going to castle short or long. And what you're going to do is normally put these rooks on d8 and c8 and just quickly pressure him on the queen's side. So after knight to e4, I'm up material, so I just trade it off. I play c6, preventing, because if I played something like e3 or something, he just has bishop takes b7, and then this rook's gone. So that's tough. And then so I play c6, preventing this capture on b7, which would eventually lead to the loss of rook. We have knight f3, and then after e6, he castles. I put my bishop on e7. I don't really want to commit it fully yet because he still has this annoying d4 pawn. And so if I develop it like here or here, he can just start launching these pawns toward this bishop. And so it's very scary. I don't really know what I'm going to do with this bishop yet. Is it going to go on the king side? Is it going to go on the queen side? So I just don't want to develop it just yet. So I just put it on this very passive square e7. Just I'll decide where to put it later in the game as it goes on. So after c3 castles, he plays b3. His bishop's kind of just lost. And then I put this queen on c7, which is my whole point in the Scandinavian defense because it just puts everlasting pressure on this h2 pawn. And then so c4, just expanding. I have knight d7, finishing my development. I put my knight on f3 just to target this bishop on e4, and if he just takes, then I just take the bishop, and this rook is going bye-bye very soon. So we run the bishop back. I put my rook, as I said, on the d and c squares. That's normally what happens on the Scandinavian. And I'm just looking to invade his position on the d2 square. So he plays d3, preventing that. And then I hop my knight in the g4. What I'm looking for is, is to maybe reroute it, maybe to e5 potentially, and just get rid of this knight because that knight just prevents anything that this queen does. And then after developing it here, I can maybe play h4, h5, h6, and just start to blow him off the board. But he plays h3, which I have to put my knight back. The good news is that now the queen is just, now the dark square on h2, g3, and f4 is just forever weak. And so bishop c5, and I have b5 trying to break this. Because if he takes, whoopsie. And so he plays a4. He's trying to put more pressure on this pawn rather than taking, the c pawn taking, so we can not get these two bishops absolutely murdered. And so I play a6, and the idea is if he takes with the a pawn, I take with the a pawn, and if he takes my rook, then this whole file's just mine. And so that's exactly what he does, except he does not take. He puts his bishop on, sorry, e5. And so I kind of blocked this pressure on the queen with bishop to d7, and finally setting up this battery on the h2 square, which I just love this with the Scandinavian. It makes me so happy every time I play it. And so he takes the knight on f6. I take with the g pawn. And I'm not really worried about getting this. This would normally be a problem when you open up your king, but I just I mean, nothing's gonna. What's this knight doing? What's this rook doing? What's this rook doing? What's nothing? They're doing nothing. So I don't have to worry about that right now. So I can just take the g pawn and be fine. So after c takes b5, I take with the pawn, and now this bishop is just hanging. So he plays rook a1. I play bishop to f5, putting pressure on the rook. I think actually rook a2 would have actually been fine as well. Except he just goes back and completely forgets why he put the rook on c1 in the first place. Like, just completely disregards why he put it there. So I take this bishop, he takes the rook, I take the rook, and now I just have this file. I'm really happy. This knight's doing nothing. It's a one mover. I just take the pawn. He moves back. I take his other pawn. He targets me. I move back. Takes. He undoubles my structure, by the way, which now it's over. And I just take, simplify, check him. There. Rook pressures. By the way, this rook is not hanging because the queen guards it. After takes, check. I just walk the pawn up the board. I check him. He hides behind the pawn. I check him again. Tries to run. Check, and mate. And so I win my second game. And I move to second place in this tournament. Second. In this next game, I believe, was it against, let me see here. I believe so. No, it was against a 1500. So this is a 1500. He is one of the best players in the tournament. The best. He did not play like he was the best, by the way. Just saying. And so I play d4, d5, knight f3, knight c6, and we go into the exact same thing that I played against my first opponent. He plays bishop f5, e3, and it's the same exact game. The same exact game. I play this bishop d3 idea because I liked what I had last time. I don't really mind the double pawns on the d file. I don't really care because any initiative against the d4 square is just gone. And so he plays knight takes, which is the proper thing to do. And after takes with the pawn, he just develops his knight. After developing the knight in the middle, he reroutes it to h5, targeting this pawn. And now I step back, and I have double d pawns and double g pawns, which is not good. It's not good. So after e6, I hop the knight into the middle as normal. He kicks my knight out. Because the whole purpose of having this knight here is just to target everything. Just with no knight on f6, he's just free to kick it out. So he kicks it out. He gets the free pawn. I develop my queen to b3, which was my idea last game, to kind of just pressure this b7 pawn, but it's also pressure this bishop. So he moves it back, defending this pawn right here, and I castle long. My idea was, like, this is I don't think this is a good move. I think I should have just kept my king in the middle here. Like, I mean, I was kind of worried about this bishop just eyeing the whole space that my king was. But my idea with going long castles was to put my king on b1 and then slide this rook over to c1. I thought this was a very genius idea. And so I kind of followed along with it. He played bishop e7. I slid my king to b1. He castled short. I played rook c1, and I got everything that I wanted. I don't have any double d pawns anymore. I just have these troubled g pawns. But I mean, I do get this nice rook on h1. And so he plays rook c8, trying to contend this semi-open file. I put my queen on c2, and this is actually a hidden idea. Because this is not only to start initiatives on this c-pawn, it's also starting some checkmating ideas. And he plays queen d6. I take on h7. It does not mate, by the way. Like, and after f7, just, there's no mate. I looked everywhere. I tried knight sacrifices. I tried maybe some potential rook sacrifices or something. Like, after this, maybe this, or, like, this, and then maybe that, but no. And so, yeah. So, what ended up happening, I couldn't find any checks, so we just repeated moves. I was pretty happy with this, because I kind of just wanted to get this game along. I was playing 1500, so I'm not going to likely win against this guy. So I was pretty happy with the draw. I wasn't happy with the double G pawns. And yeah, I just move on with my life. I think I dropped to number 4 again. Number 4, number 3. And now this is where it starts to get very, very intense for me. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm up there. Like, I'm number 4, oh my lord. And I play the number 1 player in the tournament. I was paired up against the number 1 player in the tournament. And here we go. d4, e5. We have in England. And now, the only reason why I remember this opening is because there's this nasty thing. Because after d takes, knight c3, knight c6, knight f3, queen d7, bishop to f4. Still going for kind of a London system. He is d6. And after takes, he has this queen on this b4 square, and he just plows through the position. It's just a really bad experience. So what I've learned from that is this. This is how to combat the England Gambit. If you guys want to know how to combat the England Gambit and prevent any silly nonsense about checkmates or anything, just watch this. D takes e5. Bishop c5, kind of just starting this idea on this pressure on f2. I have knight c3, which kind of just, again, going for the principles of fighting for the middle. And he plays queen h4. And I think he almost thought I was an idiot, because I'm 1300. He was thinking that I was going to play some random move like knight f3 and hangmate. Haha, no. I played g3, and I plan to set this bishop, cutting the board in half. He moves his queen to g4, which isn't very good because I just developed my bishop. And then I just play e3. And this idea with e3 is to put the knight there. It's also to maybe trade off the queens. But I didn't think that was going to work. My initial idea was knight e2. And maybe castle short. But he plays castle. And the number 1 player in the tournament hangs his queen. So we continue on e5, queen, and I just slowly improve my position all the way down to this just everlasting pressure, and I am just up so much material. I take this pawn, he plays h3, and he resigns because the rook is hanging. All my pieces are coordinated, and they are about to come out and release hell. That is how I defeated the number 1 player in the tournament. At 1500, I had successfully beaten. But that's not the end of the story. That is not the end of the story. We still have about 4 games left. So, I get paired up against another 1300. I think I'm around number 3 at this point. And I'm playing a 1300 that's like number 21 in the tournament right now. So he's doing pretty good. He starts with E3, which is just ridiculous. Like, I've seen so many people play this opening. It is such a stupid goddamn opening. I wish, like, if I was over the board, I would slap that man in the face. Like, I just hate it, dude. Like, it blocks in your dark squared bishop. There's no fight for the center. Like, it's just a dumb opening. There's no pressure in the center. It's just a dumb opening because after d5, just the center's already mine. So he plays bishop e2, which is just, again, stupid because this whole middle is still mine. So I put this knight here, getting more pressure, getting more laps on this e4 square. He plays knight f3, finally developing something that attacks this e5 square. And so I go knight c6, just keep developing, and he targets my d-pawn, so I put 2 pawns in the center. Great. Like, full center's mine. Full center. Like, this game's over. This game's over. Already. Right here. Game's over. If you can put 2 pawns in the center, it's over. Period. Just play normally, and you'll win. So he plays d4, and I push the pawn, trying to kick out this knight, except now he just develop in the center, and now this knight's going to be hard to get rid of. I take, and then I develop the knight backwards to kind of like get laps on this pawn here that's kind of just stranded out in the middle of nowhere. So he plays f4. I tried to play g3 and put more pressure on this pawn by developing the bishop to the g7 square. He castles, I put it on g7, and he takes my pawn that was hanging because I wasn't paying attention. Shorts castles, and he plays check, which, boss. Counting again. Come on, counting. Come on. It's easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all you have to know. So I take with the bishop. He takes. I take with the knight, and now we're equal. He has no pressure in the center except for the f pawn. But that can be liability weakness because this e3 pawn has no d pawn. And it's stopped. So this is permanently a weakness. So what he does instead is he plays b3 and tries to put his bishop on b2 and targets this knight, which is undefended. Because originally, when you do this kind of stuff, there's a bishop on g7, but now it's gone. So I develop my bishop to d7, puts his bishop there, and I play a5. And normally when a bishop fianchettos, what I like to do is I like to put a rook behind a pawn, a flank pawn, and start to just creep into his position. Just creep in. And if he takes, just get this bishop out of there. I try to get that bishop out of there as fast as possible. So he develops the bishop. Except that it hangs the bishop. Because he, again, counting in. Come on. How many defenders? 1. How many attackers? 2. The bishop's hanging. So after bishop takes, it just eyes the queen. And so he goes queen c1. Actually, I think he would have been fine. Because after queen takes, rook takes, bishop takes f3. And, yeah, it's just balanced. So, he missed it. So I developed the knight. I try to put pressure on this weakness on e3. And he kicks the bishop out. I bring it back, trying to eye up these pawns. So I can help this a-pawn. And he puts this rook here, which is a good idea, on d1. I slide the queen out of the way to prevent any pins. And then he plays c4. I develop it back to try and maybe reroute it on this h4 square to put pressure on the pawns. He plays g4. I play rook f e8 because I kind of want control of this d file. And he falls for he takes. And now I just have this control over the file. He tries to blow me off the board. I just developed the h5, and now I just have pressure. I can invade into your position on g3, and it's just over. It's just completely over. Oh, you have a mate threat? Nope, it's blocked. So, good luck. So I invade with a4. He takes, rook takes, sides king over. Oh, back. And pawn's hanging. He sides queen out of the way. I pull the queen up, trying to trade queens. He checks, I block. He takes the pawn. My rook invades his position, trying to go for this bishop. He reroutes the bishop to e5, trying to go after this pawn. I push it. He takes the other pawn right there. Except that it loses again. Because you know why. It hangs the queen. And he resigned. And I have moved to number 2 yet again. So I'm doing really well. And there's about 20 minutes left in the tournament. I'm doing really well. All I have to do is win the rest of my games. And I pretty much win the tournament. Except I go up against the new number 1. Another 1500. Ember Gang Wall. And he plays exactly what every Scandinavian player hates. The Tennyson Gambit. Takes, knight there, targeting it. Knight, he offers the pawn. And so, this is why you don't take. This is why you let them take you. This is why you let them take you. Because then, if you take, they have bishop takes. You try to knock out the knight, they sacrifice. You take with the king, they sacrifice the bishop. You take with the king, you lose your queen. It's the one gambit that Scandinavian players hate. So I developed the knight. And just take it. I don't care. So he takes with the knight, takes with the knight, and now he loses castling rights. This is how a Scandinavian player needs to play the Tennyson Gambit. And so I put another pawn in the center. He develops the knight, develop the bishop, castles, rook f1, rook e8. Offers me the bishop. Fine, take. You get double pawns, you get the open plow, we're both happy. e6 trading off the bishop. I try to double the rooks on this d file and just try to go. Bishop d, except knight d5, which completely shuts down everything. I developed a rook to d8. That's king over. I put the rook on d7 to prevent the loss of the pawn. He plays e3. I try to go h6 to target this h pawn. He plays h3. I go h4, trying to target this pawn. King c2 and takes. And I'm a pawn up. He plays rook here. And there's a couple of things that I can do. I mean, I can probably like try to bring this king forward. I can maybe stabilize with f6, preventing any like weakness capture of e5. And I proceed to play the only move that loses the game on the spot. Knight e7. Which I thought was fine, because after takes, I'd be fine. What I didn't know is it's mate in 3. And I resigned. And I dropped to number 7 in the tournament. And there is 15 minutes left in this tournament. I have one more game. I get paired against a 1400. He's like number 30 in the tournament. I go for the same thing. Knight f3 start. I see 6, bishop f4, bishop f5. And instead of playing e3, which I which I did the last 2 games, instead of walking in this fried liver kind of style game, I go exactly face into his position, Queen's Gambit. Queen's Gambit, C4. Gambiting the pawn. Let's go. Takes. Oh, you take it? Come on. Queen's Gambit accepted. Let's go. I know how to play this. Oh, knight f6. Take the pawn. 6, trying to put your bishop on e7 or d6. Fine. Castles. Don't mind that into my position? Oh, that's fine. I play queen b3, and this b7 pawn is a weakness. I threaten to go upon it. Knight over there. I check. You back it up. I put more pressure on your knight. You defend it. I put pressure on this annoying knight right there. You take. I take. I'm happy. You don't have this knight here anymore. You try to threaten my bishop. I take. You take with your pawn. And now I go after your weakness on c6. You invade my position with d3. I slide the rook over. You try to put more pressure on my queen. I slide the queen back, still putting pressure on this b file. f6. I just play a4, trying to undermine this bishop. e5. Bishop back. Rook e8. Takes. Queen a4. Hanging. His position is bad. c5. Let's go. Rook c2. Just defends anything that I like. Maybe I want to do something else. I want to like invade your position or something. The knight was the only problem, and I successfully defended it. I have this idea of doubling rooks. c2, c5. He takes d4. He can't take because it's pinned. And now bishop pressures knight. I take your pawn. He castles. I take your pawn. You take my knight. I pin you because if I take, then I'm down material. So I pin his bishop. He defends it. I put pressure. I pin your rook. And now your bishop goes bye-bye. And so you slide the king over. I take your rook. You slide the queen over. I take your f pawn. You slide your rook over. h3. Rook a1 check. h2. You can't get me. That's why I went h3, preventing all mates. Rook e1, and here is a puzzle for you guys. There is mate in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mate in 5. What I want you to do is I'll give you a few minutes, pause the video, and find mate. Congratulations if you found the move. It is kind of obvious. It's not that hard. Rook d8 check, and it's mate in 5. Because after king h7, queen check, only move is it's moving the pawn. And then it's not rook d7, but rook c7. Check. Only move is defending the queen. Defending with the queen. Knight takes. Checkmate. And I win. I go into the tournament. There's like 3 minutes left on the clock. Left on the play clock. I was thinking, oh my god, I gotta checkmate the next opponent really quick. I never got into a game. And I got 9th. And the one guy that I lost to got 3rd in the tournament. Congratulations to Amber Gangwall. Brilliant play by him. I thought I was winning until I played that one move. And yeah. So I get a 9th. I had 1 loss in the whole tournament, and it was to the 3rd place player. And so that concludes the under 1500 rapid arena tournament. I have 8 minutes till my next well, not 8 minutes, but pretty much 2 hours till the next under 1500 arena. So I'm gonna be playing at 6. I will live stream it. That is a promise. I will live stream it. Come watch it. It'll be a blast. I'll probably play more chess after that because my whole family's gonna watch football because, you know, playoffs. And so yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed my recap. And I'll catch you later.